Hello and welcome everyone to week 3 of Insurjo. I hope all of you had a lot of fun learning from our global mentors in the last 2 weeks, and this week is going to be action packed with lots of learnings and takeaways. So, super excited to welcome all of you to week 3. Are you excited? Give me a thumbs up if you are looking forward to week 3 of Insurjo. There we go. And before we begin today's session, I have a fun pop quiz for all of you. I know the last few quizzes have been a little easier for you to solve, but this one's a bit tricky. So be prepared. All set? All ready? Give me already week 3. That's right. Awesome. Let's go. So this time we are mixing things up. So on the next screen you'll see a company stock market ticker, right? So the first one, let's try it out. The first one is going to be a simple one. So here you go. Guess which company stock market ticker is this? Dollar CRM. That's right. A lot of you lot of you got it right. Lot of you got it right. This one was an easy one, just to get all of you warmed up. This was Salesforce. Ready for the next one? Give me some thumbs up on Airmeet. Amazing. Next one coming in three, two, one. Let's go. Dollar team. This is a tough one. No, it's not Slack. Nobody has gotten it right now. Don't Google it. It's not Slack. It's not Freshwork. I see someone. I see someone who hasn't gotten it right now. But this was a hard one, wasn't it? Atlassian. That's right. This was Atlassian. Ready for the next one? These are from India. These are global companies. These are global companies listed on Nasdaq. So we'll bring up the next one in three, two, one. Let's go. Dollar Shop. This was an easy one. This was an easy one. Shopify. That's right. And the last one is not going to be from the tech world, but a company that I'm pretty sure all of you know. Last one coming up in three, two, one. Here you go. Dollar race. Ferrari. That's right. That's right. A lot of you got it right. Ferrari. This was a fun pop quiz to get you all warmed up for the amazing session lined up today. But before we begin, as always, huge shout out to our partners, WebEngage, Dscope, MoEngage, AirMeet, and Stream. We bring in founders and product leaders from all of these companies to talk to you and teach you product management and lots more. So today we are going to have the CPO of Stream, so I'm personally super excited to learn from him. But huge shout out to each one of them. If you want to personally know about either of these are tools. These are product and marketing tools, probably the best in the world in the space that they operate in. Just let us know and we'll connect you with their teams. And like you know, we have a global pool of mentors this time to teach you product management. People from Tinder, Google, Instagram, Stream, WebEngage, Jupiter, Swiggy, and lots more. So definitely a very action-packed lineup that all of you will have a great time learning from. So super excited for this. And finally, like you know, we have a product onboarding hackathon with Dscope lined up for week 4. So after we wrap up with all the learnings from Insurjo, we are going to put all those insights and learnings and build something. So the hackathon will be held in week 4 in the coming week, and there are lots of prizes to be won. So stay tuned for that. You'll have more information when we get to it. But that's about the hackathon. And this time we are partnered with ISB. So if you're looking for a certification in product management, you can sign up with ISB for their product management certification. We have an exclusive code for our TPF members, which we share at the end of every session. So stay tuned for that. And as always, please don't forget to take a lot of notes, and we'll be announcing the winners from Nalin's session at the end of today's session. So make sure that you take your notes. A lot of you do sketch notes as well, so always so good to see that on social. Make sure you jot down your learnings, share it with your friends, and you have lots of prizes to be won. And with that, I would love to bring you Marcelino on the stage. He'll be joining us in a minute, but he's joining us straight from Portugal. He's the Chief Product Officer at Stream. He has over 2 decades of experience building products, developing it, working on his own companies, scaling B2B companies. So lots of experience in store there. So please welcome uh, Marcelino to Insurjo.
Thank you, Aditya, and welcome everyone to the session.
Marcelino, the chat is going crazy, so you'll have a lot of enthusiastic learners with you today. We are super excited to have you. Thanks for taking out time and joining us. Over to you. I'll moderate the questions for you, and folks, please don't forget to take notes during Marcelino's session. Marcelino, feel free to share your screen and then we'll get started. But folks, hope you're able to see and hear him fine. If not, let me know and we'll get it sorted.
Okay, give me a second to share my screen.
Absolutely. Perfect.
All right.
Yeah.
So again, Aditya, thank you for this kind invitation to join this beautiful community of product managers. So it's a pleasure to be here and share some of my experience. So today I will be talking about product management mindsets. Of course, there are many different perspectives about this topic. My perspective, it will be around the principles that you as product managers should operate in order to achieve higher impact. So my name is Marcelino Moreno. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Stream. Just to tell you a little bit about what Stream do, we provide APIs and SDKs that allow developers and companies to add chat, video, and activity feeds to any app. So we allow that to happen super fast. So in a matter of hours, a few days, you can have an application with chat, video, or activity feeds up and running, knowing that it will scale for millions of users. So just check getstream.io to know more about what we do. So I will start talking a little bit about my journey and what took me to this role of a product manager. So I'm 48 years old. I was born in 75. So I've been in this tech space for over 20 years, since the 90s. I have a background in computer science. I started as a developer. Initially, I was just a freelance building the first web pages for some companies. Then I moved into consulting, where I ended up moving into a management position. So I stopped coding probably too soon, because it's actually something I like to do. And I stay in the consulting world for 10 years. What was interesting was I was actually building products in that company. We were building products for public transportation companies, and then of course we were handling all the implementation of those products. So it was not just consulting. So I'm building products since I remember, so for so long. So obviously building products in a consulting company is not ideal. So it's difficult. There are many different challenges, because it's clearly not a company that is designed, and a startup that is not designed to build products. And so at some point, I ended up leaving that company, and with some friends, we co-founded our first company, then the second one, the third one. So it was a beautiful journey of 10 years, where we end up building very interesting businesses. We end up selling 2 of these companies. So it was a great journey, but mostly we stayed in the early stage phase. We were not able to scale those companies to a bigger dimension. But that was something I was looking to see. So I really want to see a company that was moving close to an IPO. And after those 10 years as an entrepreneur, I ended up moving to Talkdesk. So I joined Talkdesk when the company was around 500 people, and then I left when the company was over 2,000 people, and preparing for a possible IPO. So that was a beautiful journey. I was managing 20 product teams. So it was a large group with many, of course, engineers and product designers. So it was quite an interesting journey. But after 4 years, I had this opportunity to join Stream, and it was quite exciting, a great product, an amazing team, and I just accept to do this role. And it was interesting because Stream is somehow in between the previous experiences. So it's like between the early stage and kind of this pre-IPO stage that Talkdesk is. And so again, it's full of learnings. And one of the things I like to do, I like to accept challenges where I will be doing completely new things. So that it's an opportunity for me to learn, to feel some discomfort in the process. That is the way I just like to operate. So as I'm getting close to 50 years old, I like to think about the last 50 years of software development. And it was a beautiful journey. And I was lucky enough because I saw most of those things happening. If you look to the period between the 70s and the 90s, it was where we built the foundation for the software we use today. So the internet infrastructure was in kind of the early days. At some point, microchips allowed personal computers to start being widely available. Then operating systems, again, Windows was facilitating using something that before that was a little bit too complex to use. Then the browser. So if you see, during that period, it was when the only 4 companies with a valuation above 1 trillion, they were founded. So Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Google. They all are from that period. So it was an amazing period that set up kind of the beginning of this digital world we have today. In terms of product management, it was still in the early days. So, and waterfall was still a thing in many companies. So it was also challenging from that perspective, but things were changing. And in 2000, around 2000, with better internet connections, that allowed 2 things to happen. On one side, the software started moving to the cloud. So Salesforce is kind of the best representation of that. So before that, everything was like on-prem, and you need to install the software on every client. It was so difficult to manage. From a product management perspective, it was also difficult to iterate. And so those changes, they changed the way we were building software. So software as a service was a thing that was starting during that period, but also social networks, they play an important role because suddenly there was a use case in terms of using software and using a computer that makes sense to everyone. So everyone could just use Facebook to connect to their friends and recover some friendships from the old days. And suddenly, most people, they were somehow using a computer, either for productivity and just to get the work done in the companies where they were working, but also for personal reasons. In 2010, another big disruption. So suddenly, with faster internet, smartphones, they played a super important role in terms of allowing everyone to be using software for so many different use cases. And so during that period, of course, this process of moving to the cloud was accelerating and becoming just something that was no longer a question. I still remember for a while people were discussing if they should go to the cloud, is it safe? So that was a conversation around 2000. In 2010, that was not a conversation. The conversation was really what's the best software to use, and so it was a radical change. On the other hand, consumers, they were no longer using software just to connect with some friends. The number of use cases that regular consumer has access to was enormous. You could basically do tons of things with a smartphone. And now we are seeing another big change. So AI. So AI is changing how we interact with software. It's changing how we do some of the work that we were used to do in a certain way. And suddenly we need to rethink how we are operating. And this will keep changing as the tools evolve. But this was not a linear journey. Like, this journey was full of challenges. So we had a dot-com crash, we had the financial crisis, and these days it's difficult to pick up a challenge. So we have so many different things happening that obviously they are not good, and it, in one way or another, it kind of impacts our lives. This period from 2011 to 2021 was, I would say, at least in my opinion, it was the most exciting one. So it was beautiful. It was only about growing companies, the number of new unicorns, it was just increasing, and so many good things were created during that period. Of course, because companies were trying to grow as fast as possible, they were putting like a significant structure to make that happen, and it was becoming more and more complex. And at some point, it also allowed product managers to develop the techniques, new tools to support the work of a product manager. And suddenly, product management was a thing. It was something that was accepted in all companies, working side by side with the engineering folks and product design. And there was a career in product that people want to get into that space because it was interesting. It was exciting. But suddenly, in 2022, 2023, everything changed again. Suddenly, the number of new unicorns dropped, startups start imploding. So, and you know what happened during that period, layoffs. So that complex organization that companies were putting in place, guess what? It collapsed. And many companies, they start rethinking what they were doing. They start rethinking how to build software, what roles make sense. So I know of a few companies that they just get rid of Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. So those things start happening, and it kind of forces everyone to adapt to a new world. And that new world, now it's about efficiency. So companies are no longer so focused on growth. Now it's about being extremely efficient. And so efficiency means that you will need to rethink your role, what you are doing. You probably will need to do a few other things that you were not used to do because the structure is linear. So the point is, the tech space is exciting, super dynamic, but always full of changes. Things keep changing. So for the ones who are starting your professional journey right now, you will probably work for 30, 40, 50 years, and you will assist to those changes. You will probably assist to, let's say, 3 to 5 big disruptions. They typically happen every 10 years. And you will need to adapt. You will need to anticipate some of those changes. You will need to think about your roles, your goals, your ambition, of course. And the best way for you to adapt to those challenges is by developing a strong mindset, because a strong mindset can survive all those changes. And that's what I want to talk to you today. So how do we define mindset? What does it mean? So I like to define mindset in terms of principles. And how do we understand the principle? So I think a good way to understand the principle is to talk about some of the traps that we should avoid and some of the traps that make us not act based on principles, but based on something else. So I have my 11 principles of product management that I like to share with product managers. So stay cool, because I will not share those 11 principles today. I will not talk about the 11 principles. But those principles, they are my principles. What I believe is each one of you should understand what should be your principles, because they can be different depending on the context. Like, for example, I'm someone who I was always working on B2B companies, mostly with enterprise accounts, but also small and mid-size and mid-size accounts as well. And that kind of defines who I am. But if you are just working, let's say, doing B2C applications, or if you just prefer to work in like big corps, obviously the principles will be different. So my advice to you is try to understand your own principles and define them. But also, I also believe that each product team should have their own principles in the context of the company where they operate and considering the vision and the goals of that company. So those things could slightly change, but at the end of the day, I think you will see they will not change that much. So I pick up 5 principles to share with you today, and I choose those 5 because those 5 are the ones I see they're the most difficult to execute, and those are the ones where I see product managers failing easily, or just misunderstanding those principles, and they just don't operate according to them. So the first one is be logical. So we all have good logical thinking, right? Who doesn't? So it's something that if we ask anyone, no one will say, "Hey, my logical thinking is just terrible." Of course not. Your logical thinking is great. But logical thinking, for me, it's the number one because I think this is the most difficult principle to execute against it. It's much more difficult than what it seems. And it's also the most difficult to coach. And for example, when I'm interviewing product managers, my exercise is all about logical thinking. This is what I want to assess immediately because I know if I find someone whose logical thinking is not great, it will be slow to change that skill. Let's call it that way. So some patterns where you see that people are not having good logical thinking. So one is the conclusion bias. So I think we all know that type of person who they want to get to a place and at some point they just want to force everybody to agree with what they want instead of promoting a conversation, instead of listening to other arguments and perspectives so that collectively we could understand what is the best direction. So I call that the conclusion bias. When you are working with someone and they kind of build the case in a way that kind of push immediately into a certain direction instead of opening the book and having a very logical and honest conversation about the topic so that collectively we understand the direction that we should be going. The problem that I saw many times in my life was, so this is easy to break. If you ask the right questions, you understand that the person is with that conclusion bias and kind of forcing a direction. But asking the right questions, it's difficult. It also requires good logical thinking. And what I saw, if there is no one in the room with good logical thinking, they will not ask the right questions, and some options will be made that will take a product in the wrong direction. So that trap is super dangerous. And of course, again, as I said before, this is the most difficult thing to spot and to have really solid logical thinking. But logical thinking should be about intellectual honesty. That is reality. We should be super honest about our conversations, about our goals, about everything. Otherwise, it's impossible to build the right product. The second trap, and of course, there are so many traps. I pick up 2 just to simplify this a little bit. The second trap is the over-enthusiasm. So product managers, they love their role. They love to build products. It's exciting. Building a new product, building a new feature is so exciting. It's so cool when finally it's done and we see people using something that was our dream and we work with the team to make it happen. But that over-enthusiasm can be a problem because you can stop being logical about the process. Do you know enough? Is there a market available? Are there things that you still need to discover before you release the product? So there are so many questions that you need to ask yourself before releasing a new feature and a new product. I can tell you, like, when I think about some of my mistakes when I was building my own startups, this was probably the number one. I was too passionate about the problem and the product I was building. And at some point, I was just losing perspective about the markets and the size of the opportunity. And I was not thinking clearly. I was not being as logical as I should be. So this is the number one principle that you should keep in your mind. The number two, it's content over process. So Marty Kagan somehow talks about this. I think other people as well. Some people get too obsessed about the tools, the techniques, the process. And I'm not saying they should not exist. Obviously, they exist. They exist to facilitate our work. But you should not get too obsessed about them. You should not think about the tool first. You should think about the content first. And the content could be, what's your goal? What's the outcome that you want to achieve? What's the impact that you want? What's the problem that you are trying to solve? Why are you doing this or that? So that's the content. And then you need to understand what tools do we need to make something happen? What's the best technique? What's the process that we should follow? All that makes sense, but you should always focus on the content first and then use the tools, techniques, and processes to make it happen easily. So the common traps, it's just focusing too much on the tool. I can share a real life example of that one. So at some point I was in a company and the go-to-market teams, they were complaining about the lack of visibility of what the product teams were doing. What's the roadmap? What are you building? And there are many different angles when we talk about that. How to share the roadmap internally, how to share the roadmap with customers. What's the purpose of that? What's the goal? How to communicate it properly? So there are many different angles. But there was no conversation around that. The conversation moved immediately from, we need better visibility on what the product team is doing, and there's this tool, I will not give specific names, there's this tool that will solve the problem. And suddenly, there was a bunch of people implementing that tool and forcing product managers to keep the tool updated. And suddenly, to simplify the process, let's integrate everything into another tool because the information is already there. And the go-to-market team, they were overloaded with information that they could not process. And product managers, they had another tool to manage, to update, to keep track. It didn't solve the problem. And it was because everybody was just focused on the tool as like a tool could solve all the problems just by itself. And it can't. You need first to understand what you're trying to achieve. This is obviously the mindset of a product manager. So you want to understand the problem and you ask the why, and then you can start building a solution. The second trap is blind process following. And even product managers, they fall into those traps, especially when they are operating in larger companies where at some point everything is super well defined, because when a company becomes larger, they want to have more predictability. So that's okay. But if that predictability is at the cost of bureaucracy and complex structure and process and tools and everything else, you will just move slower. So those companies, they will predict that they are just moving slower. So what's the point? Blind process following is really when people are just following the process, even if the process is not adequate to what we are trying to achieve, to that specific content. So I saw that happening many times with Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. So I don't have nothing against those roles. I think those roles are great if well executed. But the reality was I saw it was just one example of some roles that they were just forcing the process in a context where the process was not making sense for what we need to do. So content over process is really important. And this is probably, to be honest with you, the most frequent mistake, not just in product management, but in all departments. The third one, this is probably the most annoying, like focus on closing. So why is it annoying? Well, it's annoying because it's very easy for all of us to fall into this trap. So product managers, they work with so many groups. They work with engineers, product designers, marketing, professional services, support, customer success, sales. It's crazy. And all those departments, sometimes they have like different goals, different concerns, obviously they have. And they kind of make us move into so many different directions that sometimes we end up with the start-stop syndrome. We end up starting topics that we don't really close because suddenly there is something more urgent. This is probably one of the most common problems that product managers face. So if you feel that you are in that start-stop syndrome, you really need to just stop. and think about what you are doing. Keep a list with your like 3-5 priorities, and every time someone is kind of forcing you to go into a different direction, just think if that makes sense for the goals of the company, for the business, and avoid that stop syndrome. So just focus on closing, closing, closing. Many people get excited with starting, which is also something interesting. They love starting a new product, they love starting something. So to be honest, the only thing that excites me is just closing. I'm only excited when I see a user using our product. Starting is not that fun. Starting is just the beginning of something. What matters, it's kind of the journey and then the outcome and the impact that we can achieve. So don't enjoy that much starting, and start enjoying just closing topics and closing things and delivering impact. Another trap that is somehow related with this trap that stop you from closing topics is many teams, they operate with no target dates, and like sometimes it's for the smallest things. So engineers, they don't like dates. If you ask an engineer when a piece of software will be ready, it will be difficult to give you a date. So that's a common pattern. But as a product manager, you should push yourselves and the team to have dates for everything. And dates is not about doing some sort of waterfall approach to problems. It's not planning all the dates. That is not what I mean. But if you are starting something, you should know where you expect that to end, because time is a limited resource. So if you don't know when a feature can be completed, but you should, like a great tool is to time box. Let give 1 week to build a POC so that we understand what could be the next steps. So you need to manage time, and to manage time, you need dates and you need to time box some of the efforts, especially if you don't really know what's the effort that you need for that specific topic. If you do those things, at some point you will see that you will start closing more things, and then it will have a compound effect that will be extremely positive in terms of impact to the business. The fourth one is probably the principle that I think is the most impactful one. So raise the bar. So there's a great book, MPTub, from Frank Slutman, the CEO of Snowflake. It's all about this topic, so I really advise you to read that book. So raise the bar is asking you as product managers to have ambition. So your goal is to manage the product. Your goal is to extract the maximum value from the product or from new products. You want to stretch as much as you can that value. And so some of the traps that product managers, they end up falling into, one is the incrementalism. So again, like you have great tools, great techniques, a great process, everything is well designed. You are iterating every week, every 2 weeks, you are shipping new features and you are running A/B tests and you are doing all those things. But you need to look to what you are doing and think about what's the impact that we are delivering. And many times product managers, they are executing everything by the book, but they're just delivering small increments of impact, small things. And you end up in that loop and things keep going, and you are not introducing any big disruption, any big change that could deliver more value to the business. So be careful with that approach. Obviously, iterating is how you should do things, but you should iterate because it's a way to understand faster how to deliver higher impact. So iterating is not a process for you to keep things going. It's a way to discover how to do bigger things. The second trap is just teams that operate with super defensive goals. I normally don't blame the teams for that trap. I think this is mostly related with the culture of a company. So if a company is making you feel unsafe, to raise the bar, because you will not deliver something, or you will not deliver everything that you said you will be, and then you will have the performance review and someone will tell you, hey, but you failed in goal A and B, so you cannot be promoted. So if a company creates a culture where you cannot fail, obviously people will start being defensive. So that's terrible. So if you really want to raise the bar, you cannot be defensive. So even when a company is doing that, you need to find a way to fight that. Because if you start lowering the bar, if you start having lower ambition, at some point you will not have significant impact. So please raise the bar, despite the environment and the culture of the company, keep pushing harder for bigger things. And finally, so this is one that most people probably disagree with me. So what I see as a more common principle is to say no. So using no as an argument for you to stay focused. And obviously, it's important for us to stay focused. If we are not focused on what we are doing, if we keep getting distracted with so many topics, we don't get nothing done. So I totally understand that. But I just think as a principle, the say yes is much better, because the say yes, it's about two things. It's about active listening and really listening to what someone is telling you, listening to the market, listening to so many different things. You need to keep doing that no matter what. And it's also about change. So you should embrace change. Things change. So you should not get into a trap where you have, well, my quarter is planned, so I cannot do anything else. So don't ask me for another capability in the product. I will put it in the roadmap, and one day we will do it. At some point, it's not the quarter that is planned. It's kind of the next 6 months, and then it will be the next year. And at some point, you are basically saying no to everything. So those are the common traps. The common traps is people are just not listening to what people are telling them. They immediately reply saying, "Hey, the backlog is full. There's no point in you asking more things for us to do." You should still ask questions. You should still understand if there is a good reason to change the plan. And if there is, and normally the reason would be higher impact, if there is a good reason to achieve higher impact, then embrace change. Just say yes to those things. So obviously you need to develop a good framework to filter the topics that are coming to you, and you need to do it super fast. But you should always listen to the feedback that you are receiving, and you should be open to change your plans. If you don't do it, you are just losing opportunities to do much better. So just a wrap up on those 5 principles. So be logical, content over process, focus on closing, raise the bar, say yes. So my only ask is, when you are back to work, just think about those 5 principles and think if you are really executing on them. Look to patterns where people don't behave in the way those principles describe, and think about what is kind of the negative impact that is having to the business. And again, those are just, I want to inspire you to think about principles first and process and the techniques second. But you should find your own principles. You should read the context where you operate, and obviously you will find different and better principles than the one I'm sharing with you. So some book recommendations. So How Google Works, Epitaph, The Art Thing About Art Things, and The 4 Steps to the Epiphany. I prefer to share books that were written from founders, CEOs, and basically books for entrepreneurs. I think they are much more interesting than just the traditional product management books. So those 4 are great. I highly recommend them. And Satya Nadella has this great quote that kind of summarize what I was saying in almost 1 hour. But smart people, they can say the same in 2 seconds. So Satya Nadella is one of those persons that can summarize everything in just a few words. And that's it, folks. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marcelino. Uh, Attendees seem to have a great time during your session. They loved your presentation. They loved your storytelling even more. So thanks so much for keeping it so real, so candid, that we could learn from not just your principles. Someone just said on the chat that this was not just a product management lesson, but this was a life lesson as well. And I totally agree with them. So thanks so much for being so honest and candid. We'll pick a few questions from here, and I'll try and pick the most supported questions now. But the first one, since everyone spoke a lot about your storytelling, I'd love to ask you, how do we as people in product get better at storytelling? Because this is something that helps us in our day-to-day whether it be in stakeholder management or anything else, right? So how do you get better at storytelling?
Well, you get better by, so first you need to write down your principles. You need to describe what they mean. You should discuss those principles with the team so that you have kind of a common understanding about those principles. And then you need to apply them on a daily basis. So the, you will see those principles popping up in your mind the moment you wrote them, and they are kind of present in your brain. The moment you are executing, you will start realizing that you are falling into some traps. You will start realizing that you're not operating and executing against those principles. So it will be a natural process, but kind of the starting point is for you to stop, like for a full day, and just think about the principles that you should operate in the context where you are working. So I think that's the best way. And then it's just like, as you execute, you will see the mistakes.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Another thing that I noticed about your career journey is that you started as a software developer. And what is interesting is a lot of people in our community either they start as software developers or they start in adjacent skills like, say, marketing, design, sales, etc. And they want to transition into product management. So, what are some tips and tricks that you could suggest for people who want to transition into product management from, say, a role like software development?
Sorry, you ask from a role of software development into product.
That's right. But broadly,
Yeah,
just transitioning from a different role to product management, but in your case, like software development to product.
yeah. So I think I don't have any data, but I believe the most common transition is someone that was doing software development and at some point they were just more connected to the business side of things and they moved into product. I still think that's the easiest transition because one of the things you need to have some technical awareness. You need to have some technical insights. And so if you are coming from a technical background, you have that. If you are not coming from a technical background, you need to put some effort in understanding technology. So we are building software, and like I might be a, let's say, good product manager for software, but if you put me building cars, I will be terrible because I don't know nothing about the mechanic of a car. So you need to educate yourself on tech first, and even as you grow in the product a career path, you should always stay connected with technology. um, the second advice is connect with people that are already doing that. They already have the role of a product manager. Just have conversations with different people from different different verticals, different size of companies, so that you kind of understand what's the ideal environment for you to work. So some people prefer B2C apps, some people prefer B2B, some people prefer early stage companies, or some people prefer more order and structure. Um, so just talk with people in different verticals and different stages of a company to understand where you feel more comfortable. And the third advice would be don't go to a company where you don't have solid product people. So you want to start and have someone to help you through the journey. So if you go to a company and the product structure is just too low, or you don't have like a solid leader to guide you, it will be difficult for you to evolve faster. So you need to go to a company where there is an interesting structures that you can learn with those folks.
Absolutely. And what do you think about higher education as a way to learn business skills? Do you think something like an MBA or business education can help bridge that gap for technical folks like software developers?
Well, I think so. I hope things are changing, but at least from my generation, we are very used to like big blocks to educate ourselves. Like we go to college and we take the MBA. It's like big blocks, and I feel things are changing. And like these days, we should be educating ourselves on a daily basis. It's not that we stop to educate ourselves on a topic. We should, on a daily basis, we should educate ourselves about so many different things. So anything that would help us have better knowledge about financials, business, tech, marketing, a product manager should know a little bit about all those things. So product manager needs to be good in, you should know a little bit about many topics, and then you need to be super solid in a few topics. But you need to know a little bit about sales, about marketing, about business, about financials, about engineering as well, about design, obviously. So you need to know, and you need to educate yourself in all those topics without becoming an expert. And then, of course, depending on your goals and the company you are working with, you need to become an expert, probably on a specific vertical, or probably on a few other things.
Fantastic. Thanks for answering that. Coming back to the topic for today, right? Cultivating a product mindset. Uh, Doing it individually is the first step, but I think you can only be successful if everyone in your company comes with that product mindset, right? So how do you go about inculcating a product mindset within your company, especially if your company is, say, sales driven or business driven? It can be a little challenging sometimes to help people think from a product first mindset, right? So how do you go about inculcating it in your peers and stakeholders?
Well, yeah, it's true. So some companies, they just have a different mindset, and it's difficult to create the change that the company probably will need. And sometimes it's impossible. But I think like a few tools that you can use to make it happen is, so first start with your team, the things that you control. And if your team, and ideally some peers like the engineering leader, the design leader, if you will find a common ground, if you will find some common understanding about what should be your principles, how you should operate, if you find that alignment, at some point you can start driving some change. The second tool to drive change is by improving how you communicate what your group is doing. And obviously, you should communicate based on impact. But I can tell you, like, the way to achieve higher impact is through a good mindset. Obviously, if you start with a good mindset and then you will put the tools, techniques, and processes in place, because you need order, you need tools. Obviously, it's difficult to operate without the right tools these days, but they always come second. You start with, you don't break the principles. You focus on impact, and then you start putting tools, processes, and techniques in place in a way that is viable to execute. But communicating what that group is doing and finding ways, creative ways to communicate the impact, it will somehow influence the company in doing things in a different way. Obviously, it is easier when a certain mindset is coming from the top of the company, but it's not a reason for you to not find ways to develop the right mindset, the right attitudes that will help you achieve higher impact.
Got it. Just as an extension to this, how do you build influence as a product manager? Because along with cultivating a product mindset, you also need to have some influence in order to push things through, in order to align people to what you are planning to do, right? Are there any tactical tips or things that you have found success with when it comes to influencing your team or your peers?
Well, um, yeah, it's typically the basic stuff. So it's like two tools. So typically the way you communicate with the people outside your team. So many teams, they end up communicating too much to their own team. They communicate what they are doing in a language that only the team with the context can understand. So good communication to other groups, you need to do it in a way that they can easily understand what you are doing, why you are doing, but you need to realize that they don't have the same context that you. So improving that communication and how you are communicating with other teams, it will facilitate the alignment. But if you don't do it properly, it will be confused and people will not understand what you are doing, and at some point they will disconnect from what you are doing. So the communication is super important. You need a structured approach to communicate what you are doing and why you are doing, so that the other teams can easily connect with you. Obviously, having a good process in terms of defining goals that are aligned and they make sense, it's super important. So obviously we can talk about OKRs, but I don't want to talk about techniques and much more about the mindset. But obviously, if you don't have a process where those goals are well designed and well aligned, and that's difficult to do, by the way. So if many companies they do OKRs, but they do it in a terrible way that doesn't really promote alignment. But you need that tool. You need to use those things for alignment. And so communication and alignment on goals are just like super basic but powerful tools. The third one that I think is more difficult is sometimes companies, they need to have too much alignment, in the sense that there's too much dependencies between those teams. So my advice is you should not think about your own scope, you should think about the business. And when there are teams that are the dependencies are just too much, that is not good for any of those teams. It's not good for the business. So my advice is you should also think about the scope of each team. And sometimes a good way to promote alignment is by removing those dependencies and ensure that each team is actually, they can operate with more autonomy and with less need of alignment. So alignment, it's a good work, but sometimes if you need to have too much alignment with too many teams, I can tell you that something is wrong. And it's wrong with kind of the org design, the structure. And you need to revisit that. And you can push it. You can talk with your manager about those things so that you can operate with higher efficiency and higher impact.
Thanks for answering that. I think this is super relevant as the company grows or when you have a larger team. But when you are, say, in a setup which has a small team or it's a startup, right? How do you kind of push people to think towards a product first, in a product first manner, right? Because when things are in a very small setup, it can be very difficult to focus on product as a mindset within the org, right? It can be too tempting to just go with the flow and do things as they come. How do you inculcate that behavior since day one, since the early days?
Promote the impact. So you need to have a group of people that they focus much more on the impact of what they are doing, ideally measurable impact, and less on the features they are shipping, the new capabilities they are building, or any other thing that is not really delivering impact. So if you start promoting the impact, people will realize sooner if they are doing the right things or not. And that will help promote kind of the best product approach and the best product mindset. So typically teams that are not executing well in terms of building the right product, it's typically teams that they don't focus enough on the impact. They are just happy because they just delivered a new feature, but then they don't follow up on those features. Like, for example, my many teams, they still consider the definition of done the fact that it was shipped into production. That's not done. What was the impact? Then is when you achieve something that you can measure. It needs to be adoption, engagements, whatever it is. But that's when it's really done. So as a product manager, you should kind of focus on the impact and kind of to promote that product thinking. You should promote much more the impact of what you are doing on the product side.
Perfect, perfect. Another question that I see here is, how do you balance it when there are minute changes to roadmaps, especially from stakeholders? Because in some cases it is unavoidable. There will always be some things that get left towards the last minute. But how do you counterbalance it? How do you make sure that nothing changes too much when things are ad hoc? How do you go about still achieving your roadmap to the best level possible in that case?
Well, again, it's the impact. So if those changes are happening for a reason that allow us to achieve higher impact, then it's okay to change. If you are seeing too many changes and you are having too many topics that you are starting and stopping, something is wrong. There's a reason why the software development cycle should be like small increments, because the only way to avoid that start-stop syndrome is kind of to have those small increments so that you can close something and then you can change your plan, even if you were planning to build like a second iteration immediately after, but now there's a second topic and you can reprioritize. So typically the teams that cannot make the cycles shorter, they will have more changes, and they will end up, of course, with a process that is not efficient, because if you are starting and you invest and then you stop because something has higher importance and higher impact, then of course it will not work well. So it's super important that you do an effort to keep the cycles super short, and then you will accept those changes easily.
Perfect. Thanks so much. In one of your slides, the last one especially, you nudged everyone to say yes more often, right? Which is a very counterintuitive advice for product managers, because everywhere leaders and mentors are usually nudge people to say no more often, to prioritize better, to keep your focus very sharp on a few things. How do you go about balancing both saying yes as well as saying no whenever needed? And what are those cases? If you could maybe share a few examples and talk about it.
Yeah, no, so you just need to, so your mindset should be about listening to people. So people are coming to you and asking for things for a reason. So you need to keep listening to what they want to tell you. So the say yes mindset is really for you to just listen to what people have to say, ask questions, try to understand what's the problem, what would be the value in solving it. You need to keep doing those things. That is part of the role of the product manager. You cannot use it as an excuse that your backlog is full and now you are not listening to anyone. If you are doing that, you are really not operating in a continuous model, because the continuous model, it's about continuously listening to what people have to say and kind of doing those things. So the mindset comes from that angle, because I feel a say no mindset, and when I see people promoting too much the say no, I feel that creates a mindset where people are basically not embracing change. They are saying no too fast, they are not listening. So I think that's the wrong mentality. But obviously you need to develop a framework that allow you to be super fast in filtering the topics. So you need to know the right questions to ask so that you understand if that is something you want to explore, or if that is something that you need to move ahead in the roadmap. But by saying yes, you will end up exercising that framework more often. While if you keep saying no, you are not listening, you are not exercising that process, and you are not exercising continuous development. That is what you should be doing. So the say yes is just about keep listening, but obviously you will be saying tons of no's, obviously, because you need to manage capacity, you still need to stay focused, but you should not stop listening to customers, to the markets, to stakeholders, to so many people. What you need to do is to build a framework where you can be like super fast in making decisions and moving forwards with all the focus.
Perfect. Thanks so much for summing it up so well. I think this was much needed, because this is such a controversial topic, especially in the product management space. But it's true that there needs to be a fine balance for both of it. Marcelino, there are a lot of people who want to get into product management or transition into product management, joining in. So one question that I spotted was, what are some obstacles that you faced early in your career while you were making the switch, and how did you overcome those?
Um, Well, I was always building product even when I did not add the title. So when I was in consulting, I was project manager, business unit manager. So I didn't add the title of product manager, but I was the one thinking about the product, thinking about the solutions, the requirements, doing the discovery, doing all that work, even if in those days we were using different names for those activities. Um, so I don't feel I did the transition to product. Still, when I moved from consulting to my own companies, I was not the product guy. I was actually the managing director, or the CTO. I was helping with managing the business, and it was small companies. So obviously, you need to do a little bit of everything. At some point, when I decided to focus on a product, a career, I need to, and I was already with close to 20 years of experience. I decided that I need to do a step back. And so when I joined Talkdesk, I joined. It was quite interesting because I talked with some executives from the company, and I said I want to join this company, and I can do anything. So I can do product, I can do engineering, I can do professional services, I can do support. I don't care. I want to join this company because you are growing super fast, and I want to be part of the journey. And the executive on the other side, he asked me, but what do you like to do? What do you really want to do? And I said, I want to do product, but I know I will find my way to do it the moment I join. And if you don't have a position right now, I don't care. I want to join the company, and then I will move into product. And then they did the case study. I joined as a principal managing one person, all good. So sometimes you need to do a step back in your career. But then I was probably the person who grew faster during that period. I moved from managing one person to managing 20. It was like super fast. Obviously, the context was helping growing that fast, but still, I was one of the few that was able to grow that fast. So if you really have a goal, you should sometimes need to do a step back. You should not be concerned about that. It doesn't matter. Just focus on what you are trying to achieve and do whatever is needed to make that happen. If you need to do a step back, that's fine. Don't care about titles. Don't care about salary. Just do what you need to do so that in a few years you are where you want to be. And that was what I did. And I was, of course, some luck in the process. We always need some luck to help us during the journey. But it was clear to me what was my ambition. By the way, that was something I really advise you. Like, think about your career since kind of your first day working. For 10 years, and I never thought about my career. When I was in consulting, I was just working like crazy and doing whatever was needed to deliver. But I was not thinking about a career. When I was building my own startups, it was about building the startup. It was not about my career. But at some point, I decided, okay, I need to stop and think about what I want to do for the next years. And the moment I focus on that, things start happening. So don't do the same mistake. The day you start working, okay, you need to serve the business well. You need to have good work ethic, but you need to think about yourselves and where you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And you need to put a plan to make that happen. Otherwise, it will never happen.
Amazing. This is such fantastic advice. I love the bit where you said that you need to act for the role that you want rather than the role that you're in right now, and which is something that a lot of people miss out on. So thanks so much for sharing that. And you mentioned that you grew super fast in your career over the years, transitioning from one role to the other, and then now you are literally at the pinnacle of the product management space, being a CPO, which is what a lot of people aspire to become one day, right? What is some advice around growing fast in your career specifically? You touched upon it a little bit, but I would love if we could double down on it and share a bit more around how do you think about building a career as a whole and growing fast to eventually becoming a CXO in your field.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a person that has that vanity of the title. Okay, I don't have. That's not. I don't think that's a measure of success. Okay, for me, the biggest measure of success is how happy you are in the work that you are doing. So that's the number one. You just go to work and you feel happy and energized about what you are doing. The second measure of success is how much you are learning. And even if you don't grow and you become a CX something, it doesn't matter. Are you happy? Are you learning new stuff every day? You are in a good direction. Still, my advice would be have a plan. Just decide what you want to do. And it could be about moving up in the chain, or it could be about something else. But define your goals. Think about what you need to do to make those goals happen. But define those goals around something that you love, something that you really like to do. So you need to have some passion, because otherwise it's difficult. How can you perform well if you are kind of being forced to go to work and do things that you don't love that much? So find your space, find the things that you like to do, and define the goals around that. And then just keep learning every day, keep challenging yourself. Don't stay in the comfort zone. If you are doing something super well, it's time to change. It's time to go and do something else. It's time to share that knowledge with other people. Don't stay there. Don't stay doing the same thing for more than 2 3 years. That would be my advice. If you don't see a big change in your daily work, just go and do something different, because just by doing something different you learn so much. You work with different people, you have a different products, so it can be the same company, a different company, but you learn so much with change. So embrace change, define your goals, and do something that you love would be my advice.
Fantastic, fantastic way to wrap this up. We are right at the brink of time. But just last question, we ask this to most of our guests. If you were 20-year-old today, what career would you pick, and what advice would you tell yourself?
Hmm. Well, these days, I don't know if this is entirely true, but these days I don't know if I would stay as a software engineer. I think it's so beautiful, the power of someone who can actually code and build things. That is so cool, so cool. And the tools, they keep improving, and some people expect that at some point we will not need developers, but we will need the best developers for sure. And so maybe I would stay in that path probably, but I hesitate. I like to build things, and being a product manager is also something extraordinary. So yeah, I have some hesitation. I don't look back. Like, the only advice I would give you would be, and this is also probably counterintuitive, is so you should work less than I worked when I was younger. So I was working too much, to be honest. And the problem, and of course we kind of, we like to see people that they just work a lot and they make things happen. That's great. But I think the problem when you are working too hard is that you stop losing perspective on what's happening around you, and you stop managing less time to learn about new stuff. So work hard, but please obviously keep time for your family and friends. That's the most obvious thing. But the less obvious is you should keep time to learn and to understand what's happening around you. Because if you don't do it, you will be just like with your eyes just blind, and you will not make the best choices.
Perfect, perfect way to wrap this up, Marcelino. Had a great time hosting you. Fantastic session and even better answers. I personally learned a lot from your session and answers. So thanks so much for your time today, folks. Please show some love to Marcelino in the chat and in the reactions tab. And Stream is also a partner for Insurjo. So thanks so much for all the support that you have shown towards this program and the community. Really appreciate it. It's only because of brands like Stream that we are able to make these courses super accessible to thousands of people so that they can learn product management and grow in their careers. So thanks so much for taking your time today, Marcelino.
Thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Amazing. Before we wrap it up, we usually take a quick picture so that people can share it on social. So if you can quickly post for 2 seconds, it'll be amazing.
I will do my best, Matt.
Perfect, perfect. There we go. Thanks again, Marcelino. We'll not hold you for any
Thank you,
longer. I will spend some time with them to answer queries about the course. But thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
thank you. It was awesome. Thank you.
Perfect, folks. How was the session? Loved it. Personally, great wisdom towards ratio. Totally agree. Totally agree. And this was fantastic. I see the chat buzzing with praise for Marcelino. Uh, Amazing, amazing. I'm around for a bit to answer your questions. I think you folks had raised some questions, but we have a few slides. So I'll probably share my screen again and talk about the course a little bit, hopefully answering your questions on the way. But let me know when you can see my screen. Just give me a moment. Perfect. I hope you're able to see my screen now. Uh, how do you all find such amazing people in the field? Totally, you would notice this in every mentor for Insurjo. We personally curate the lineup to make sure that you guys have the best learning experience, not just in India but globally. Bringing in product leaders from all across the world, like Marcelino joined us from Portugal today. We'll have speakers from the US. We had Ravi Rishi joining in from the Bay Area. So global mentors joining in for Insurjo, so you have the best learning possible. Awaiting Mate Kagan, absolutely. Me too. And quickly, we'll just wrap this up. Milestones to graduate from Insurjo. I hope you all know this by now in this session, but please attend all the live sessions so that you can make the most of it. Speakers like Maslino spend a lot of their time preparing and then coming to deliver these sessions online. So make sure that you make the most of it by answering questions, interacting. This is not something that happens every day. So make sure you join in every live session. And after your live session, you can post all your learnings on social by using the hashtag InSurjo with TPF tagging at the product folks. Participate in all the weekly assignments. I hope you already have been working on them, but if not, make sure that you're on top of it. Participate in the weekly assignments and then complete the hackathon submission, which is on week 4. So you don't have to worry about it right now, but something to be aware of, right? So make sure that I see a lot of questions. I'll come to it. Please extend the weekly assignment deadline. We will try doing that, but please make sure you submit on time. It'll be impossible to extend deadlines every time. We did that the first time because people were getting used to the format and everything. Where can I find all the weekly assignments? Please scan the QR code that you see on the bottom left of your screen. You'll have access to the knowledge base, and that is where you'll be able to access all the assignments and everything. And make sure that you're on our WhatsApp and Slack. So you'll have mini challenge and assignment. Yes, both of them. You'll need to do both of them. So make sure you complete them on time. But moving on, a lot of you have been asking during the session about the ISB course as well. So now that we are at the end of the session, sharing the link as well as the coupon code exclusively for TPF members in the chat. Here we go. You can, I'll just pin my chat so you can easily access it throughout. But yeah, I've just showed it on screen so you can easily click on the link. But ISB, like you know, is the number one business school in India, and a lot of people were curious about a certification from a premier institute uh, while doing Insurjo. So in case if you're looking for a B school certification, do check out the ISB course. We are doing live master classes alongside this course for all the students who will be joining this one. So it's a collaboration between ISB and TPF. If you join in the course, you get a flat 5% discount using this coupon code. So make sure you uh, use it in case if you are interested. But but yeah, this is something that I wanted to share before we wrap up. I see a lot of questions around recordings, but folks, recordings is something which is just acts as a smaller supplement, but the real learning happens on the live sessions. Recordings can be used to revise the learnings and lessons after you go through it live, but please don't rely on recordings to consume it the first time, right? So uh, but you'll find all the sessions being streamed on YouTube as well in case if you're not able to join in on AirMeet. And can you tell us about the hackathon? Yes, we do have the hackathon. uh, I see many challenges. That's right. That's I think someone had shared links to the assignments earlier, but the many challenges are the assignments. So you'll find it on our Notion knowledge base. About the hackathon, we'll share about it in due time. But for now, don't worry about it. Right, you'll have all the details that you need to apply and submit the assignment for the hackathon. Right. And now, before we move forward, I wanted to announce the winners for the previous session. Is everyone ready to see the winners of the last session? Please give me a thumbs up if you want to see the winners for the previous session. Awesome, awesome, awesome. There we go. Here are the winners from Nalin Goel's session that happened 2 days back. Krishnika, Ravi Teja, Parul, Shweta, and Srivatsan. If you are watching this, congratulations. We loved your notes. Please continue doing them. And rest of everyone who submitted, I saw tons of different sketch notes and notes on LinkedIn. So please keep it up. This is just about acknowledging some of the best ones live, so all of you feel acknowledged and uh, appreciated about your efforts. But please keep up the good work. Tag us and tag the speakers wherever possible, so that we can reshare it, so that we can consider all of your assignments and notes for the prizes. But huge congrats to all the winners. In case if you are watching, then please reach out to our team and you will have access to your prizes. But thanks so much for participating in these challenges, participating by sharing your notes on social. Please continue doing that. And like I was sharing earlier, we have a super packed next few days lined up for all of you. We have Anuj Rathi, who's probably one of the best product minds in India right now. He was earlier the SVP of product at Swiggy. He's now the chief product officer at Jupiter, one of the largest neobanks in India. And he'll talk about how to become a full stack PM on 15th of Feb. So make sure you don't miss this out. This will be an amazing session. We always love hosting Anuj, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. And on Friday is where we'll have Marty Kagan, one of the best product minds globally. Marty has been supporting the community since very long, and we'll have him uh, on a live AMA session, so that we can he can answer all your queries and he can add value to your product careers as well. So super pumped to host both Anuj and Marty. Then in the coming week, we'll have Ankur and Pavni lined up after these sessions, and we'll also have the hackathon running in week 4. So super pumped to host all of these amazing people, and also excited about the hackathon, because that's where you'll put in your learnings and build something. So, and yeah, Nida, totally agree. Can't wait for Anud's session as well. He's always so amazing with his insights and super candid about sharing his experiences. So definitely looking forward to his session. But yes, that's everything we have lined up for the next few days. Do you have any questions? I'm here for a bit, happy to answer any questions. So I see a question which is asked in the Q&A tab, and it's supported a lot. So I'll probably address that. How is the progress of cohort members tracked, and is there any dashboard where I can see this? So currently we don't have a dashboard where you can see your progress, but this is something that you can maintain at your end, right? What we do is at the end of the cohort, we ask you to submit all the assignments and submit all the challenges that you have done so far, so that they'll be eligible for a certification. But this is great feedback. We'll try and implement this in Sergio 2025. So thanks so much for this feedback. But for now, please continue attending the live sessions, track your progress, and then obviously more than that, keep learning and engaging. So please share the TPF WhatsApp group. You would have link for this in the knowledge base as well as in the email. So certification other than ISB, I totally feel that there are tons of certification out there, but you need something which is more comprehensive, which includes live modules, which includes experiences from all around, and a great curriculum, right? So since we are partnered with ISB, can definitely recommend it personally. But yeah, please feel free to uh, check out Insurjo and other courses. More than the certification, the learnings matter a lot. So hopefully you'll take back a lot from Insurjo, which is completely free to access for everyone, and build a career out of it, right? And we are here to help you along the way. So Friday is live session. That's right. The Friday session with Anuj is a live session like we did today. In fact, all the sessions that you see on your screen are live sessions. All the Insurjo sessions happen live so that you can interact with the speaker directly and make the most of it, right? Whom should we reach out for the best session notes? Please reach out to Tanmay from our team. We'll also ensure that you get your prizes, but instead of WhatsApp, can we have a community channel? We do have a community channel on and WhatsApp groups, and we also have a Slack where all the major announcements happen. So make sure you join in the Slack and WhatsApp. So it's a great way to stay updated about the course and everything else around it. Already joined Slack. Perfect. There you go. Any other questions about the course? Challenge, deadline. Haven't received a response. No problem. I'll ask Tanmay to check and reach out to all the winners. So don't worry, if you have won a prize, then you will have access to the promised prizes. So don't worry about it at all. Where can we view these notes from other participants? Just go to LinkedIn or Twitter and use the hashtag Insurjo with TPF. You'll be able to access everyone's notes along the way. It's a great way to check out others' session as well, but others notes, I mean, along the way. But use the hashtag in your notes, and if you want to check out others notes, you can search for it on LinkedIn or Twitter, and you'll find tons of them on both these platforms. Can someone share PDFs to the books posted in the session? Nida, you'll have to find your way through it while getting PDFs. But all of these amazing books are obviously comes very highly recommended, not just from Marcelino but from a lot of product leaders across the globe. So highly recommend you checking them out. Uh, Please consider giving cohort members access. We do have access to the Insurjo fundamentals course for session winners. So if you want to get access to the previous course, make sure you take notes, share them on social, and every session we pick up new winners and people who do a good job with the notes get access to not just the previous Insurjo fundamental session, but lots more. So, Sachin, amazing. Any more questions? If not, we'll wrap it up. But thanks again for joining in and making these sessions uh, a huge success. Love the energy that comes in on the chat that reflects on the session as well. So, thanks so much for joining in and making Insurjo such a great place to learn and take back from. TPF swag kit. We definitely have some swag kits along the way. So make sure you share your notes. That's the best way to win them. But share the Twitter handle of presenters. We'll do that. You can search for him on both LinkedIn and Twitter. You'll be able to find him. You can tag him so he'll engage and get to see feedback on his session as well. Any other questions that I can answer? I think I've covered pretty much all of it, but if there is anything else that I can help answer. Perfect. I don't think there are any more questions for this time, and we will see you again on 15th Feb, which is the coming Thursday, with Anuj Rathi, who's the Chief Product Officer at Jupiter. So super excited for the next few sessions, but especially the next one. So I'll see you all, and this is your host signing off from this session of Insurjo. See you again super soon. Bye bye. Take care.